Good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m., October 5th, and I now call tonight's meeting of the Oregon Village Board to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Howard,
Yes, or here, rather.
Ollie,
Here.
Carpenter,
Here.
Staton, Poole,
Here.
Woodrow,
Here.
Grenier,
Here.
Okay, we have quorum, so let's proceed to public appearances. Item A on the agenda is Kim Sorbet. Kim, would you please step up to the mic and identify yourself? Tell us why you're here.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Kim Sorbet, and I am a parent at Netherwood Knoll Elementary, right here. I'm one of the parents who has been extremely involved in the Arboretum renovation, the outdoor classroom inside of Netherwood. And we've been doing that for about 3.5 years. One of our main goals there was to get certification for that outdoor space as a certified outdoor classroom, and we got that at the end of last year. So now what we're doing is taking a broader look at school, the sustainability, and one very simple thing we noticed is that we have no trees on our playground, not a single tree. So we found out that ATC, the power line company, has grants up to $5,000 to purchase trees. And we've worked on that grant. We have it all ready. We've been working with Paul Ganchert, who I'm sure a lot of you know locally here, on recommendations for species and pricing. So we have a plan ready to plant a dozen nice trees on the playground. We have one sticking point, and that is that ATC requires the grant be awarded to a municipality. So I am here tonight to ask you to consider letting us put the contact info from someone of the village on our grant. And I've been working with Jeff on that.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, actually, I can say that everything she told me is the truth, which is good.
That's a good start, Jeff.
So far, yes. No, she called me last weekend, actually through Andy Weiland. They've been working with the school. This is on school district property, and the school district's unable to make this application. As I understand, it's not the first time that we've done this.
We did the middle school.
We did the middle school as well. This is a great cause. Of course, I told her there was a deadline that we were kind of up against, and I said, well, we have to run this through the board. And we'd be thrilled to put our name on it as a village, the staff, and be able to, I think we really just become the intermediary for the money to be able to make the payment for the trees and everything like that. And then Kim has expressed that they and volunteer laborers would work together to be able to plant the trees. She's expressed that they'd like to get larger diameter caliper trees just because the little tiny trees on playgrounds just don't last very long. And I'm in agreement with that. It's all sound like, I looked it up, I looked up the program and the brochure and everything looked really, really good about it. So we would just need your approval to put the village behind this.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I've got
Double second.
Are there any questions? Because I have a couple for Kim.
Sure.
Kim, first of all, it looks like a great project. And I'm very pleased to see a wide variety of trees proposed for this area, because you don't want, 15, 20 years from now, you don't want the same thing that's going to happen to the ash trees.
Right.
Could you describe exactly where this area is over at it's Prairie View, right?
It's at Netherwood.
Netherwood.
Yep, so like if you were in the pool parking lot and you kept driving through those gates,
Yes.
you've got Netherwood on your left,
Mhm.
and you've got the whole playground on your right.
Okay.
And
All
so
right.
it's that whole playground area.
Okay, I see in the picture now. I got it.
Yeah,
It's it's going to be around the equipment.
right.
Correct. Okay.
Mainly, yes. It's pretty brutal out there. If you've ever played out there with kids in summer, there's no shade.
And this is all paid for with the grant funding?
It would be, yes. The grant is up to
I
$5,000.
guess my point is there won't be any village taxpayer funds
No.
involved. Okay.
We've gotten very used to operating on very little money with our Arboretum budget.
Thank you. Any other questions?
My only other comment is recommend that they work with the chamber to make sure that they're in a location that's acceptable for the Summerfest setup and everything. I think that would be, just so we don't have any conflicts. I know that there's a lot of, that area is used for several different things along the way, but
Yeah, I know Andy's always very mindful of that too when
Exactly.
we talk about that area, so they always have that in mind.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you very much.
I
Thank
assume
you.
you'll call me at about 7:05 tomorrow morning?
I will.
Okay,
You know me so well already, Jeff.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Move on to item B. Oregon Ice Arena was scheduled to present a request for a liquor license application, but they have retracted that request, so we'll move on to item C. And we're going to discuss with Village Engineer Brian Berquist on a possible action to approve a pay request to Fox Contractors in the amount of $335,753.70 for the Janesville and West Netherwood projects. Is this, Jeff, are you gonna?
Yeah, I can introduce introduce Brian Berquist from Rooker Bilke. Town and Country. Phew. That's not the first time that's gonna happen. I apologize, from Town and Country. Thank you. They were the engineers on the Janesville and Netherwood Street improvements. This is the first and primary, really there's only been 2 payment applications on this.
They have that.
Yeah. And the first was just a payment application for the paving. I don't know if you remember, this is kind of a multifaceted project. We have work on Janesville Street, over near Wolf, County M, and the Quick Trip BP area. There were some items that are shared with Dane County, predominantly the paving, and the undercut that was done. There are certain areas that are within just the village area, which they had the contractors there who decided to do a little extra work along there, and then replace the water main through that area. This project also involved the replacement of water main along Netherwood from Market Street to Main Street, and also the milling and overlay of that area along there. Before you tonight is the payment application totaling $335,753.70, which includes the contracted work plus what is listed as change order number 1. And Brian would be able to explain what the change order entailed and everything. There were some unsuitable soils that were found in the initial excavation. Rather than when they pulled the old pavement up, basically found liquid goo, I believe, under the...
That was the term I used, yeah.
Yes, liquid goo, and that's an official term, under the pavement. And really what you do there is you either do some sort of stabilization or you take the material out and bring back solid material. And that had to be done, and that was done at a cost share with Dane County. What also happened with that is when you're excavating liquid goo right next to curb and gutter that is very, very, very old, it just falls apart. And so really what needed to happen is be able to take out that curb and gutter, take out the unsuitable soils, come back with suitable soils, and then put new curb and gutter in. And the portions of that are within the Dane County ones are 50-50 split with the village. Portions outside of that are, well, let's see, the curb was pretty much 50-50.
There's a small chunk to
Yes.
the east of Wolf.
That's
that
right.
The county
That was
wants the village.
strictly village, but it is a little confusing the way it's split up, and it's still being, if you notice in the memo I sent, it's still being kind of worked out. We have a change order number 2, which is for the unsuitable material, or the suitable material being brought back in, and we're still working with Dane County on that payment, as well as they will be billing us and we'll be billing them for the difference stuff that we've provided them, and they provided the paving, so we'll be paying half of that.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Brian or Jeff?
What's the, besides change order 1 and change order 2, which were related to the work that was done kind of upon discovery, what's the variation from the bill that's being brought to us and the budget that was approved by us?
That is a good question. The total amount of the award was
It was 348,485.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's on the back sheet here. Did you get one of these, Jeff? Yeah, so the contract price prior to this change order, 348,845. And then, so I have a follow-up question to Jeff. So it says the contract price incorporating this change order, 377,512. So are you not recommending we pay the first change order right now? Is that the deal?
No, we are paying the first change order there. What's out of that are, the original award, the contract award price is based on a unit price estimate and the extended amount times the bid price for each unit. And what happens at the end of the project, the engineer, in this case Brian, they go through, they account for the linear feet of curbing installed, and then it all shakes out at the very end. There was some cost savings that we were able to achieve at this time by not going into Main Street. We saved like almost $20,000. I mean, that,
Yeah, almost 20,000. You also
Yeah.
had a little, the project was bid with small pieces of curb repair on Janesville at a fairly high unit price because you had a small quantity. By replacing all of it, you were
Almost
able
900
to,
feet.
we negotiated a price that was about 2/3 the cost of the bid price per foot because you just get more economy of scale that way. So those were the two main savings on the project. They were overwhelmed and overcome by the aforementioned goo, but that will knock down the total price.
Okay.
so the price that we're paying today for the RT Fox, or that we're recommending payment today for, is the RT Fox bill, includes the unit that were summed up by Town and Country times the unit price, as well as the items under change order number 1, which we received a confirmation from our engineers that they were in agreement with the prices and the quantities.
And do we have any idea what the makeup of goo underneath the street was?
It was pretty clay, silty
Yeah.
clays. We found, or the county did the pavement removal. They actually found footprints, and an inverted footprints underneath the concrete slabs, indicating that it was so soft when they poured the concrete that a human's foot went into the goo, and they poured concrete and it filled, it was like a Bigfoot footprint. It was very soft. And if you ever got a chance to walk the street itself, you could kind of tell because the slabs themselves had sunk to a point, probably 2 inches below the gutter, which also provided for why the gutter was falling apart. The water just could not get to the gutter and go into the soils and make it soft, and it would just spiral itself. So it was pretty poor. I think the village is looking at a reconstruction further up County MM with the county. There's going to be some bad soils as part of that project also.
And I think that this is a place where I'd like to make a comment, which is going to carry over into a future conversation at a future date, probably. But my guess is that road was paved to the county standard. So when we talk about the county standard, I think it's important to remember that it might not be the same standard that we would do the job ourselves, or that our residents would expect the job to be done. And this would be a good example of that.
That's part of the negotiations we're having with the county and the MOU.
Yeah, I understand that these are two separate issues, but
No,
I just
actually,
don't want to lose this as.
Actually, they're not. They're very related. What happened on this project is what's driving us to have more detail and more evaluation and more analysis as part of the MOU,
Yeah.
including soil testing.
I'm
So
glad
they're-
to hear that.
Yeah, they're related.
And if I could add, that we're also, and that's why there's gonna be more oversight.
Yep.
On any future projects related to the MOU. Yeah. But it's a good question, Jeff.
And actually, when we talked with in fairness to the county, when we talked to them about doing this project, we both said this was kind of the trial run on how it was gonna affect the rest of the project. So it's we didn't expect this to happen, but, it was a good lesson for us as we did that. Now we do the next 4 projects with them.
Any other questions on this item? Okay, did we have a motion on this yet, Peggy?
No?
Could I please have a motion to approve the payment in the amount of $335,753.70.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
also looking for someone with a size 10.5 Reebok. Is that right, I believe? From 1970, yes. Thanks, guys.
I can talk about him now, he's gone.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have Gwen Mason is going to explain the arts initiative for us in 10 minutes or
Is there
under.
a story?
I will, and you can stop me because I can be a little bit over. First of all, I want to thank everybody for giving me a second chance. When I had drop-in guests, and we started talking about goats, and when I started talking about goats, all bets are off. So, this is the business plan, and the good news is also, and I only have 10 copies, so,
Take your one, please.
and,
I'll share mine with Lisa.
okay.
We can share.
And then, let's see, what was it? The good news is I'm not asking for any money, and I'm just asking for support.
Do we need Gwen is talking to you? Yeah, do you want to get maybe the wireless one or that one? Whichever one works. Oh, Dan will turn you on.
Is that on now?
There we go.
Thank you. So, give me a second to get my computer up. I was hoping I could avoid all this by coming in earlier and setting it up, but of course.
Sure.
That's fine. So I'm Gwen Mason. I live in the township of Oregon, and I'm also a school board member. And I have to say that Andy and I have been working on this for a little while, and I'm really pleased to see that it is moving forward and getting quite a bit of support. There's my coats. And the one thing I found is that I'm also a retired art teacher and have a few MFA in painting and MSCD in education. So this is right up my alley. And and the other thing is Oregon. I love Oregon, but it doesn't have a whole lot of public artwork. And so I did a little bit of research, and I'm getting there, everybody. Thank you. And it was amazing when I started talking about it. Everybody was like, okay, that's nice. And then I made this PowerPoint and it was like, oh, yeah. So here we go. So the one thing that I do know for sure is that throughout time and memorial, art has always transformed not only individuals, but a time, like the Renaissance, and it also transforms villages and cities, etc. If you have a healthy cultural centers, you have a healthy town. So I'm a firm believer that art transforms. And this is all on the paper, so I won't go through it because I know you all know how to read. But this is the objective, to bring arts, not only bring visual arts, but also literary arts into the public forefront. And this would happen through, what has happened is DPI, Department of Public Instruction, has asked us to move funding from one fund to another fund, and the funding has to go into community education. So community ed is where the money is coming from, and then one of the requirements is that it also has to be a part, it has to be within the district, which is 10 communities, but it cannot be part of the curriculum. So that means that it's extracurricular, and I think that we have an opportunity here to really use that concept and to pull in people cross-generational as well as cross-interest. Community benefit, the time is now. We just passed that $54.6 million referendum. We have a beautiful new space between Netherwood and Prairie View School, the outdoor space. If you haven't seen that yet, I would recommend that you check it out. And it was very serendipitous that Kim Sorbet, I had heard her. It was the first time I met her, and now they're working on doing outdoor sculpture in the Arboretum. So this is perfect. And the other thing that's really exciting is that I know for a fact that in Oregon there's a whole lot of artists, and in the area. And one of the problems with artists is that it's like herding cats, and so you have to kind of reach out to them, and not only, I'm not going to be doing all the work, but having certain artists with their specialties come up with ideas, present them, and then have people come together and make things for the community. And there's a lot of buy-in. And we also have a ton of visitors to this town. Our restaurants are really improving. The sports are incredible here, and it draws a lot of people. And I have some slides that look into, I went to school in Indiana. I know, it's a little embarrassing, but true. And Columbus, Indiana, which has the backing of the large corporation Cummins, has not only have they, a little tiny town, has put themselves on the map for 30, 40 years by bringing in international architects and international artists. And it is what do they call that? A destination point or destination place. And I have some pictures of that. So what can we do to enhance the visual arts in the Oregon School District? Well, and because I'm a retired art teacher, I know how to pitch a penny and know how to make really nice things with not a whole lot of money. And I know $10,000, that's what our budget is $10,000. And I think it's a great start. I'm not complaining, but I want to get as much out of that 10 grand as we possibly can. So I want to show you some pictures of environmental art, recycled art, integrating sculpture with STEAM, getting a little close with that whole concept of curriculum, but that doesn't mean that we can't bring it out into the community. Outdoor murals throughout the district, and providing more spaces for longer exhibits, and collaborate with the Oregon Park District and the Dane County Anderson Park. I've already talked to Parker, and we have maybe a winter project that's not going to take any money, and it's going to be really kind of fun, and I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. Environmental art is basically using sculpture outdoors, using materials that are wood, found objects, rocks, stones. These are, I love the center one. It's so basic. And as a matter of fact, I wanted to put my money where my mouth was. So this fall, I'm going to, got to make sure the township lets me do it. But I'm going to be putting up a gate at the end of my property that connects to an Oregon Village park. And it's going to be covered in sticks, and it's going to be about the mathematical symbol pi, and also connect it with the concept of a Shinto gate, so you can walk through pi and Shinto. And one of the things, I'm not a mathematician, but I like irrational numbers because they're not finite. And so I think that's an interesting concept, but I kind of got the ideas from pulling these pictures off the internet. Just taking dead trees and sculpting hands on top of them. That's pretty easy, and you dig a hole and throw some concrete in it, and voila, you have sculpture. The one on the bottom left is a very simple piece by a famous Scottish artist named Andrew Goldsworthy. I recommend looking at him. A lot of his work is not permanent, so the documentation is really important, the photograph. He's one of my favorites. Again, these are just what you can do. There's a young woman up in Canada now. She takes driftwood and makes large sculpture out of that in animal forms. I mean, wouldn't it be kind of cool just to walk in a park and see this large white-tailed deer, there, and you need to build an armature, you need to, somehow attach everything, but that's why you have artists and engineers. I'm very lucky. I come from a family of artists and engineers, so it's a nice combo. I like the one at the top with that one is, I believe that's in Czechoslovakia, and I've forgotten the name of the artist, but it's called Tree Huggers, and it's made all out of wood, so I think that's kind of clever. And I wanted to show you that there's really complicated pieces, and then there's really simple pieces, like getting together at the Firefly on a Saturday afternoon and painting a portrait on a rock, and then mosaic, put it, embedded in concrete, and voila, you have a really beautiful community piece of artwork. And I like what John Bonsett Beale did with the community quilt that's hanging in the Firefly too. So this is recycled materials. The flowers on the bottom are all made with bottle caps, plastic bags on the right, and junk for the dog on the left. And that's where inviting people that teach people how to weld, or a project manager for a remodeling job said that, and it was best advice I ever got, was liquid nails, and it's one of my new favorite materials. This is a mural made with bottle caps, and I'll try to hurry through these. These are made with bags from Target, and you can see the circle, and a very ingenious way of dealing with trash. I like this one, just, jigsaw with the holes in them and wire on a fence. I'm thinking the dog park, except not fish, but dogs. And then there's alligator tires, more bottle caps, more plastic bottles, story posts on the lower left, mosaic rocks. And then there's living art. You build a concrete form and put moss on it. More interesting topiary. This one is by an English sculptor named David Nash. He actually had a big show, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago down in Madison. And what he does is he plants trees and then trains them to go into different shapes so that it's a walk-through piece of artwork. And I somebody gave me some 10-foot tall type raspberries that grow crazy, and you build like a hut and put the raspberries in it, and you can not only walk through it, but you can eat it at the right time. Art and science, compasses, labyrinths, meditation. This is just done with leaves. This is New Harmony, Indiana, another place in Indiana. This was a utopian society during the Victorian age, and it changed into a point of destination, and now artists come from all over the world. And apparently they have this is their community center, and what happens is that people from all over the globe come and have these summits at this place because it's very secluded, it's very safe, and so they have international leaders come and meet. At the Oregon High School, I'm very proud to say that my class about 10 years ago, I worked with Mark Young, who was the school psychologist at the time, and we worked with Wisco in the tech ed department. Wisco cut all the steel out, and the guys in the welding department, at the time it was just guys, put it all together, and that's still up, and it's part of it's become a symbol now. And I was very proud of my students. They designed it, and we manifested it. these are the only two real pieces of sculpture in town that are public. That piece, and then this one, it was donated by an anonymous donor in front of the library, and I think it's been there for about a year and a half now. And I don't know, I just stop and look at it, and then during the wintertime, somebody made socks and gloves and hats and scarves for it to have it warm, and I thought that was kind of a nice interactive. Now this one is very expensive, it's made out of bronze. Concrete art, I'm also really interested in the literary arts, poetry in particular, and I know that our school board president would like to see some of our sidewalks with poems or haiku or something on it. In Iowa City, they have quotes by famous authors all through the town, and it's really kind of cool. You're walking around and go, oh, look, that's cool. And
Excuse me, Gwen.
yeah,
Over here.
Oh, I'm almost
sorry
done.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're at 15 minutes now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Concrete, mosaic, sorry about that.
Oh, that's not a problem.
Murals at the school. The one at the upper right is at a prison, and now people come there and visit their relatives more because the school or the prison is more inviting. And another thing are poetry posts, which are sort of like little libraries, but people put poetry in there. And this is Bainbridge Island, where they put them in store windows. And Madison has this is Columbus, and we're already implementing it. We have a new gallery at the high school, and our possibilities are unlimited. Thank you. So I hope that you'll be watching for things coming along, and of course, part of it will be that we will just talk to you and communicate. So, liability is a big issue with this, and making sure that it is publicly appropriate too, because artists can get a little crazy, and I'm all about that, because the last thing I think anything like this needs is negative controversy. And so I look forward to working with you down the road, and I just wanted to let you guys know what was going on. So thanks for your time, and thanks for the extra 5 minutes.
Just a second. Just a second, Gwen. Does anyone have any questions for Gwen regarding her initiative? Okay, sorry to cut you off, but
No,
we've got other people waiting.
I'm sorry, too.
No.
I apologize.
Yeah, but thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting.
Thanks, Gwen.
Thank you for allowing me to come back.
Since there are no questions, we'll move on to the next item, which is a discussion with Jim Lees. Jim, would you want to step to the front, please? And introduce yourself and your associate.
Jim Lees, this is Tim Thornton from Royal Oaks. And just here to talk about some of the unexpected stormwater structures, I guess, that we've run into
Right.
on Thompson Drive.
Right. I
Kinda-
guess, Jeff, would you like to give
Yeah,
an overview on
I can
this?
do a little introduction for this. Jim and his mother, correct?
Yes.
Are developing Thompson Drive right behind Walgreens, connecting Netherwood to Richard Road,
East Richards Road, yep.
East Richard Road. And it's been a project that's been around for quite a long time, as I understand it. And now we're moving ground on it. About a week and a half ago or so, when doing the initial clearing and preparation for the roads as well as the sanitary, we received a call, and kind of, there was a structure out in the middle of where the roadway right-of-way was. We looked at the records and were able to kind of come up with, it was an outlet structure from the stormwater detention facility that is located at Walgreens. And further evaluation out on site, when we were out there, we had several of us meet out there on site, and we looked at it, and we saw not only was the Walgreens parcel discharging to that location, also the State Bank of Cross Plains had a discharge pipe out onto Thompson Drive, as well as there's runoff coming from the apartments on the northern side. My first reaction was that, as with any project, you deal with your stormwater on your project, but you also have to deal with the water entering your project. And unfortunately, this area was very, very vegetated, and so I think there were a lot of things that probably couldn't be seen. I don't know if there was, or how thorough of an investigation there was before the design and everything, but long story short, the stormwater needs to be dealt with, and that needs to be intercepted and put into structures and then run to the existing detention pond, which is part of the Mary Hill. It's probably phase one, I would imagine.
Yeah.
That was
Phase one of Mary Hill. The design, the current design done by Royal Oak did account for the stormwater on Thompson Drive, did not account for the stormwater coming from off of Thompson Drive. So in the last week or so, they have prepared some kind of preliminary drawings and everything to be able to intercept the stormwater, be able to convey that into a new easement that would go through the southern portion of the properties.
Well, the easement's been there, but yeah, through
Yeah,
the
there
easement.
is a utility easement there, and we may want to clarify it as a stormwater easement. That would get some of the stormwater to the pond. There would also be stormwater coming from off of the apartments. Is it Valley, or is it
Oregon View,
Valley View?
Yeah, I'm
or-
not sure what,
something.
it's on the north end of Thompson.
Yes, and then lastly, the other item that was a change to this project is when the State Bank of Cross Plains was designed, there was a plan to actually run a driveway from the back of that property onto Thompson Drive, eventually out onto Netherwood. For some reason, at the time when the bank went in, they never put that through. My gut feeling is there were so many trees in the area that they decided it would probably be too expensive at that time to push it through. It is a dedicated right-of-way for the village. And so I identified 4 locations or 4 items that needed to be addressed in the design before they could continue with the construction of the project. One was to address the stormwater coming from Walgreens. The other one was to address stormwater coming from the bank. The other one was to address the curb cut and thickened sidewalk in the area of the driveway to the state bank. And the fourth one was, actually there's 5 things, or another additional one. Other one was to take stormwater from the apartment buildings and get those into the stormwater detention basin. And there are 2 platted lots that Thompson Drive intersects that are actually behind the existing post net or not post net,
Postal connections.
post connections, yeah. Post connections building as well as the Moonstar building. There's 2 lots that'll be accessed from Thompson Drive that are not part of, you do not own those.
No.
Those lots. But Jim is providing services to those, the water and sewer. And they'll also have to have their stormwater, those are commercial lots, would have to have their stormwater go into the system. We've had several meetings on this. At the time, Mr. Lease felt that, this was problems that he did not create. That's, I think, debatable, but we've talked about, what needs to be done as far as a design goes. I believe he's here tonight to look at potential cost-sharing options, because it does come at a cost. I don't know if the latest.
No, yeah, those are just estimates, but I didn't, I was supposed to receive some actual cost today, which I didn't get from the contractor yet,
Yeah.
so.
In the identified, just the engineer's estimate, and as an engineer, I know where these, they can be high, they can be low, but is estimating approximate changes of about $35,000 of improvements needed for per the recommendations that we've added.
So, without losing your point, because I really wanted to dig in a little bit, I heard you say, Mr. Lease, that, through you, that these are circumstances that you didn't create.
Correct.
I'm curious to know, though, if these are circumstances that you would consider to be part of the risk of developing, that should have been foreseen in the plans for development, or how you feel the village had responsibility to foresee these or to share in the cost of these as you develop the land?
Well, we're butting up to land we don't own, but that, the stormwater coming off of Walgreens, all of that was approved by the village, and it stopped before it crossed easement into the retention basin and has been there well before Walgreens was. So they stopped short of where the end point was.
Whose land was that?
The road was dedicated to the village, and the easement, I'm assuming that's dedicated then to the village also. It's an easement.
Well, the road is.
Excuse me?
Thompson Drive, you're asking?
Thompson Drive is, and then the easement is also platted.
The
So they
easement-
could have connected straight across to the pond. There's land set aside for that.
The easement was only platted recently, correct?
No, 91.
The utility easement was platted in 91?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
with the plat, yep.
So, for the benefit of myself, at the point where there's an easement through private property, that basically the the property owner at that point cedes that property over to the village, and that becomes the village's property? Is that right?
Not in an easement.
No.
In a dedication, it does.
Okay, so
Yeah.
can you tell me the difference between an easement and a dedication?
Yes, actually, the easement is still owned by the property owner. I mean, the land is still owned by the property owner, and in this case, it would be Mr. Lease.
My mom,
And your
Mary
mom,
Jo.
Yes. Do you go by like Lease Incorporate, or is it, how, I don't know, I just want to make sure I'm.
Mary Jo Lease.
Okay, Mary
Yeah.
Jo Lease, okay. In that case, the property is still be owned by Mary Jo Lease. The dedication is when they're, as part of their development, they're saying, we are dedicating this portion, it's usually a 66-foot wide strip of land, that'll be our future right-of-way. That ends up being essentially deeded over to the village at that time.
At what time?
Well, at this time, it was deeded over, I guess I'm saying. you're saying
1991.
91,
That's when it was dedicated.
yes.
So the village owns the property,
The village owns the.
or
north-
owns the easement, owns the right to run through the property?
The village owns the property that is currently will be Thompson Drive, and that's running north to south. Where the easement we're talking about is an east to west easement. It really is just shown as a utility easement, and typically they're put on the sides of end lots and on the rear of lots to allow for utilities should underground cable, electric, fiber, or it's a utility easement. Typically, easements are called out if they're specific, say stormwater and access or maintenance easements are usually called out a little differently. But I would say that since 1991, we've put a lot more emphasis on stormwater. I don't think you would have seen a stormwater easement back in 91, just because we've put so much more of an effort into stormwater nowadays. I think to your question, Jeff, when you develop a parcel, you're responsible for handling what's coming onto your property, and you're also responsible to get it through your property. And I think that's where I think there is a level of disagreement between, staff and the developer in this situation. Because, the designs for the bank, I have not reviewed the designs in depth or anything, but, they are required to meet whatever Dane County's had at the time or whatever the village had at the time for release rates, for detention. They have ponds, both facilities have ponds. You are not, as far as I know, you are not required to run that to the, when do you stop? If you say, okay, now it's dumping into the pond, well, do you have to then continue to make sure it gets farther and farther and farther downstream? That's been my position in my discussions with, Mr. Lease.
And from 91 up to this point, that was all green space, heavily wooded green space. So the reality is that if the water somehow overflowed the detention pond at State Bank across Plains, it wasn't affecting stormwater at all because it was just going to overflow into green space.
Probably not even noticed.
Right.
Yeah.
So how, in your mind, how does this differ from putting in laterals and connecting to public sewer and public water as far as developer's responsibility goes? What what I'm hearing Jeff say is that this is just one more developer responsibility relative to the stormwater plans that the village enforces at this point for developers. How do you see this as being different than all of the other responsibilities a developer has to develop consistent with village expectations and plans, et cetera?
Well, we're not allowed to just dump our water over onto somebody else's randomly. I mean, that wasn't just random green space, that was a road and lots laid out. So if that structure was allowed to continue the way it is, it just floods the road.
Well, there's no road there.
No, but it was all marked out for the road, that's not, and actually they set that drain pipe at road height, so it's not a mystery as to what it was.
So, so are you suggesting that because you had originally planned for it to be a road, that it was the village's responsibility to develop around your development in such a way that it took into consideration your future plans?
Initially, we have the storm sewer on this project was just designed at the low point of the street. And since Walgreens came in, again, this was designed 20 years ago, but since Walgreens came in and the bank with their ponds, they're basically saying, we're forcing Jim Lease, who's building this road, to add another 600 feet of storm sewer to take care of our water. Since we're dumping it on Thompson Drive, now all of a sudden the developer has to come back and pay that price to hook our water up to get it to the pond. I think it could have been, it sounds like he didn't even know it was being done. I mean, they could have came to him, got an easement, and ran it all the way to the pond like we're planning on doing it now.
I mean, actually, the easement was there.
Yeah, there was an easement there, but nothing was said to anybody. So the village approved plans. I mean, Walgreens, the manhole that's in the middle of the road, that's where the stormwater stopped. There was no bottom in the manhole. It was going into the ground or it was bubbling out of the manhole. So you can, now all of a sudden, we got to put in 600 feet of pipe to connect to the stormwater that Walgreens is just dumping onto us. So I don't know if, I know what you're saying on connecting to sewers and waters. We're given 2 new lots, sewer and water laterals. Jim is paying for all the road to get now 2 more accessible lots for you guys for tax base. And now he's incurring costs from Walgreens and the bank to get their storm sewer to a pond that was there for 20 years.
And this is after the plans have already been approved. I mean, when we cleared those trees out and we asked, what is this manhole? No one could give us an answer on that. You know, I mean, no one seemed to know where it was.
Well,
Now, Jeff did find it, which was pretty
including the
impressive.
engineers. And this is where I keep coming back, and I don't want to point fingers. I've been on the other side of this table before. But, you know, reviewing the plans, the plans were, as I understood it, were generated quite a long time ago and kind of freshened up for the design that we see today. I understand there wasn't an additional survey or anything done out there. Honestly, a civil survey of this area would have detected outlets, it would have detected the basin, it would have detected the structure out there, and it would have had pole sheets of the pipes coming in and going out. I mean, it's pretty standard, and I think those are the things that would definitely have shown up on the plans. They are correct, the plans are reviewed, but the information's not on the plans, so unless you had gone out as a reviewer and bushwhacked through everything, you wouldn't have seen it either.
So when you're dusting off plans that are 21 years old and you're going to implement, would you say that that would be a normal and customary thing for a developer to do? To go through and do a new survey to see if anything has changed that would affect the plans?
I would defer to Jim on that, to answer that question.
Sure, I think you're right. I think you're right, but if it was 8 years ago or today, still, if we were building the road 8 years ago, we'd still be in the same spot. Jim would have to bring storm sewer up to take care of that, Walgreens and the bank. I think Walgreens was done 10 years ago. I mean, if this road was built 15 years ago, what would Walgreens do, or what would the bank have done with their stormwater? I think they would probably just dumped it onto Thompson. Like, you know, I
Well,
don't know.
we wouldn't allow them to dump it onto
Well, I
Thompson.
know, but I mean, I don't know what they would have done.
You know, if I could,
I mean, we did ask. I mean, we asked as best we could, and all our plans are reviewed by everybody. It wasn't like it was a real fast-moving project. I mean, it had plenty of time to be reviewed through that, you know, the 3 or 4 years that we were pretty inactive just because of the economy and stuff, but,
if I could just step in here for a second, I think the plan, at least Mike's recommendation, is that staff continue to meet with you folks. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not,
Yeah, you're not done.
I don't think anyone here is expecting any kind of,
No.
you know,
No, no,
resolution. It was more of an open discussion.
Yeah.
In the, I guess Jim understands that it's an ongoing project out there, and he's got a contractor that's
Yeah.
moving ahead to
and
be
I-
able to finish this road by the time weather allows.
Right, and I think there's staff will continue to work with you on a resolution on this.
just a quick question, and
Oh,
then
go
we'll
right
get,
ahead.
on the bank driveway construction, I mean, we talked about that years ago before the bank had changed hands, where they were supposed to put in that temporary drive, and then due to lack of use of the bank, they weren't required to do that, so that isn't, it isn't mandatory that they have that driveway, so if they want that, I mean, that's fine, but I'm not sure why that would be our cost to put somebody's driveway in when it isn't a necessity. I mean, obviously, those water laterals out of those other lots, you know, I mean, we're done arguing on that, but
But the village is just asking that you're doing what's within the public right-of-way, well, what's within the right-of-way development. That driveway already actually extends, I think, within a foot of the property line, which is the
But
right-of-way
then wouldn't that be the
line.
bank's responsibility to have their driveway then? I mean, if they want a driveway, I mean, here's the cost, that's fine, or they can have their own contractor for that matter, I guess. We're not blocking a driveway they have because they're not required to have one there.
I'll have to look in the files.
But that's fine, I mean,
and see.
again, I
I've
wasn't
gone through-
looking for an answer on that, just, we talked about all the stormwater things, that was just $1,300 or whatever, that's one of the
Right.
other items that was on this, yeah.
And my understanding is there's gonna be some kind of a negotiation going on here.
Correct.
And with hopefully a resolution that will come back on for the
21st.
October 19th
Or-
And
board meeting.
once those duplexes are developed, I mean, we are bringing in a substantial tax basis as well as
Right.
the building permit fees and stuff like that, so it's,
We all appreciate that.
yeah, thanks.
Yeah. But again, I think it would be more efficient if you worked with staff and worked out the details.
So just wait to hear from you then, Jeff, is that?
Well, I'll be actually expecting, I believe there's costs coming from your contractor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from Capital Underground.
You know, and those are more firm costs that allows us to work with something. And then, then we'll be meeting and then have it on for is the meeting on the 19th or the 20?
We're shooting for the 19th, or it could be the 21st. One of those meetings that we,
Right, and you'll be bringing a recommendation back to the board at that time, and at that
19th.
time.
or
the board
an update.
or an update, and the board will have much opportunity for their questions and input at that time.
Yep.
So we'll be on that meeting, I don't have to schedule that then, is that right?
You'll be on the 19th or 21st.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jim, thank you. Thanks for coming down. Okay, that takes care of our public appearances for this evening. So we'll move on to approval of minutes, and I would appreciate a motion in the format that's indicated in our packet tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Minutes are approved. We'll move on to item 5, approval of vouchers.
So moved.
Well,
Second.
What is the amount of the vouchers? I'm gonna get to that. Just give me a second. Motion to approve vouchers in the amount of, in the general operating fund in the amount of $139,562.49. And the total for approval is $143,231.06. And we got a motion and a second, correct?
Yes.
So are there any questions on the vouchers before we vote? I have to admit, I couldn't even find any issue with the vouchers tonight. Very unusual.
Sorry, Jerry.
Good job, Lisa and Mike.
Just a quick question. Do we have all the impact fees all paid back?
No.
Oh, okay, I was just wondering.
Nope.
Thank you.
Okay. So we got a motion and a second on the vouchers tonight. If there's no further questions, all those in favor?
Could do
Aye.
a
Aye.
Could do a
Or
roll
there's a
call.
roll call on that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Would you go ahead, please?
Grenier,
Yes.
Brett Howard,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Folly,
Yes.
Poole,
Yes.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Motion carries. The vouchers are approved. We'll move on now to proclamations and announcements. First, we have board comments. Anybody on the board? have
Yes,
any
I would
comments?
like to make a comment.
Darlene?
I attended the, at the pump house the other night. Rob Igo presented to Randy the Tin Man. And you know why the Tin Man? Because that's what the water tower is called. And Rob did this Tin Man, and now it's in display over at the Firefly. And there was Rob and his wife and his family and Randy. It was really neat. And the other comment I'd like to make about the banners that the chamber has put down on the street, I think they're lovely, and I hope you've all noticed those. They're really nice.
Yeah, Darlene is very correct. I saw the Tin Man over at the coffee shop Friday night, and Rob did an excellent job on that.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah, and it's surrounded with materials that indicate how you can help donate to the restoration of the Tin Man. So please take note of that, stop in. I don't know if Randy Gleish has a website or not.
You can go to the village's website.
Go to the village's website and you can find out also
Yep.
how to donate to that project.
Yep.
But it's progressing nicely. Any more board comments?
I'd just like to commend the Rotary for its fall festival this past weekend. I thought it was a nice addition to Oregon and its family-oriented festivities.
Yes, very nice. I wish the weather would have cooperated a little bit more. Could have been a little warmer. But it is October in Wisconsin, so kind of luck of the draw on that. But anyway, thanks, Doug. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to staff comments. Mike, would you
Sure,
like
I
to
can go
take
through
over?
them. So we have trick or treat hours are from 5 to 8 p.m. on the 31st of October. Just a reminder about the joint meeting with the Planning Commission on November 5th at 6:30 to review the draft sign ordinance. And we will be handing out the preliminary budget this week to the board for the first meeting is next week, Monday the 12th, and then the subsequent meetings are the 19th, 21st, and the hearing is going to be on November 16th.
All right, thank you, Mike. And then I believe we also have and I think Jeff can help me with this. We have a final brush pickup coming up next week, correct?
We do. Final brush pickup is starting, it'll be this next Monday. It's the second Monday of the month, but this is the last one in October.
Correct.
And then we'll be starting the leaf pickup on October 19th.
Okay.
And as we've kind of always said, it always is dependent on weather, when the leaves come down, and when the first snow hits. So
Yeah.
we will be out in force taking care of that.
Yeah. The staff doesn't dig through snow to get to the leaf piles, so.
Nope,
We're good up until we get the heavy snow.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jeff. So we'll move on to item 8, communications and miscellaneous business. And we've got some follow-up items on the September 21st board agenda.
So Jerry, I just wanted to mention that I want to correct something I said at the last meeting, that when the signage was purchased at the middle school, the school actually paid for most of it through a grant.
Okay.
The village only paid $81 for it, so
Any board questions on that? Okay, next.
And Jeff, you want to give a update?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Very happy to say the water tower is back online, and it was online. It was supposed to be put online by mid this morning. I really want to commend our water utility folks for maintaining water pressure, and we received very, very few, I wouldn't even call them complaints. We just had a few concern calls of people who noticed lower water pressure. So they've done a very nice job of keeping our system pressurized and working well. As far as the status of the fix, that was completed in just a few days, starting last Monday. And they were actually just doing the final touch-up of the insulation and the final touch-up painting and everything last week. We received the safe passing back T samples both on Friday and then confirmation over the weekend. So we should be back online, everything ready to go. Hope we don't have to talk about that same issue up there for a very, very, very long time. Water Tower Clean Coat has done a very nice job. They've been very responsive and have also provided us some nice information along the way.
No, please commend the staff on that quick repair and also actually finding the problem to begin with, you know.
Right.
It
It goes to show sometimes preventive maintenance
Right.
is a very good thing, and it can identify things before things really go bad.
And as I understand it now in discussion that this will be a routine thing to check that connection to make sure those aren't, haven't shifted or
Correct.
or in
Correct.
jeopardy of breaking.
And if you remember that the expansion joint that was in there before was actually much more of a longer, slinky type of joint. The newer one is much shorter, and it should not be allowed to have any kind of lateral movement like that either, so.
Fantastic. And Mike, what about
Yep.
our water and?
Yeah, Eric, you had a question about the zero. Yeah, so we actually asked Mark Belo about that, and Mark said that typically how the village has handled it is that if you have a duplex, an old duplex with one service, that if someone doesn't pay their water bill, we can't legally turn their water off, but we collect it on their taxes at the end of the year. So we're made whole.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
Yep, good question.
Okay, move on to item B, which is discussion and possible action regarding adding student board committee members to Park Board, Historic Preservation Commission, Library Board, and the Planning Commission.
So how this came up was we think we have 4 high school students who want to be on the park board. And so I was talking to Steve about this, and, it's hard to turn that, somebody who's interested in serving on the village committee or board down. So Steve thought that we could, we'd have to change the municipal code. We'd add a student representative on each of these bodies. They would not be, the extra student wouldn't be a voting member, but they'd be on the body, could ask questions and so forth.
I think it's a very good idea. The county does a similar thing in all their committees. They have 2 to 3.
Joey, do they, but they don't count it for quorum, do they?
They don't count for quorum and they cannot vote.
But they get to talk and
Yeah,
engage in.
they get to ask questions and whatever. So it's a great education
Right.
for the community because they come, as they mature and get older, they're more aware of how their community works.
Because what happens is that, we kind of go through these cycles where we have a hard time finding somebody even to serve on the park board, and then now we have all these interests, and so you would not want to have a situation where you're missing a person all the time for quorum, so.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if the board's interested, you could direct me to ask Matt to prepare the necessary ordinance to bring back to the board.
Would you like an official motion or should we just?
I think a motion would be good.
Okay,
for the
could I
record.
please have a motion directing Mike to take action and add student board committee members to these, the boards as indicated?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Move on to item C, budget amendment 2015-02. Lisa?
We've been working on the budget, as you know, and we're anticipating a surplus at the end of this year. And typically during the audit process, we will move money out of the general fund into equipment fund and streets for the next year to cover some of the expense instead of having to borrow, while still maintaining our fund balance policy of between 25% and 30%. So we're anticipating that we're going to have a surplus again this year, so we decided to move some of this money so that next year, as we're working on our budgets, we probably won't have to borrow quite as much money then.
Very good idea. So are we looking for a motion to approve this budget amendment? Is
Yes.
that- Okay, could I?
So moved.
A second, please?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Budget amendment 2015-02 is approved. Lisa?
Thank you.
Moving on to item D, discussion and possible action regarding the bike trail pay request number 1 for phases 2 and 3, which includes change order for the total amount of $474,000, $351,354.54.
So I'll make a motion for discussion to approve the payment. And my question is the same question.
Sorry, I'm in to run the meeting, but you should have a second.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Second.
So my question is, how does this payment amount deviate from the approved budgeted amount?
It's at this point, it's a little bit less, as stated, but it's close.
Specific to the phase 2 and 3?
Yes, correct.
Yep.
Yep.
And again, this is borrowed funds, right? This will be
It
paid.
is combination of borrowed money, 2 county grants, contribution from the town of Oregon, and possibly some ATC money that will apply as it, we'll see how it all turns out.
So it's a true collaborative
It
effort,
really
I
was,
guess
yeah.
is my point.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for coming forth with that, Mike. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just a quick question now. This will be all now? This will be all taken care of now then?
There's the retainage on the trail yet. There's some things they have to come back and fix.
And how much would that be? I don't see
A
that.
2% retainage, whatever.
2% of the total amount?
Retainage is $9,680.64.
And when is that due?
Well, they'll come back, Jeff, probably in the springtime, right?
Well, it says here, actually, if they're coming back to actually do 2 repairs, I think you said here,
Yeah, they're saying in the fall, but I wonder if they're gonna do that.
right?
Yeah.
Retainage is one of those things that sometimes it can be the next month if they're able
Yeah.
to take care of all the problems, or in this case, if there were a lot of vegetation that had to be reestablished or something, it could be the
Right.
next spring. So-
Well, maybe they can do it this fall, but it may be more likely will happen in the springtime. Depends on the weather, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, does part of the county take part of that too? Or
The-
that we're only paying half of this, right?
No, this is all, the village received 2 grants from the county,
Okay,
so we're paying it out of that funding.
okay, it's been, okay.
The funding I just went through for Jerry.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to the next item, Allison has included a memo in the packet. It's a request to close the senior center on Tuesday, October 13th. That's next Tuesday, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And this is going to be for annual staff in-service training. And as indicated in the memo, the programs and services will all cease that day, but home-delivered meals will continue. So those folks that are receiving their meals at home will still get those.
Yep.
And it looks like we're asking for a formal motion. Would someone please make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And, see, from the earlier Public Personnel, Public Safety and Protection Committee meeting, we had an action approving the purchase of new departmental badges. Would someone please make that motion for discussion?
I'd so move.
Second?
Second, Chief, would you like to explain the badges, please?
So as part of my 30, 60, 90-day plan, you guys saw that I wanted to restore a sense of pride in the department. So what I did was I formed a uniform committee to take a look at our current badge designs. Our current badges, as you can see, mine is a star, but it has a circle around it. Our officers wear a 5-point star, and that's most indicative of a sheriff's department. So I wanted to do something that would allow the officers to have a little more say in what we're wearing, to have a little more sense of pride, something that was unique to our department. What they came up was about 3 different designs. This one, as you can look at it, you can see that it has our police department in the background, and then have several different gold aspects to it as you move up the ranks. So it gives them a little sense of pride as they move up to a sergeant, and a lieutenant. And what it really does is it gives us, in my opinion, a little more professional appearance, and really gives the officers a sense of pride in what they're wearing and what they represent.
Thanks, Chief. Matter of fact, I don't know if Dan can zero in on this, but this is for the public. They can see what the new badges will look like. When do you expect those will be here, Chief?
They take 12 to 14 weeks, so we're hoping if we order them tomorrow, we'll get them by Christmas. We'll see.
Okay. Got it, Dan? Thank you. All right, and thank you, Chief. We just had our committee meeting an hour and a half ago, so Chief had to go through and explain all that just now, so. But it's good, the public needs to know this. This is a very good project. Moving on, we have,
Get a vote on that.
we didn't vote on it yet?
I don't, we vote on that. I don't think we voted.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G.
Really quick, this is, it's helpful for me to know that the Public Safety and Protection Committee, which met and thoroughly discussed both of these issues, is in support of them.
It
To
was-
me, that shortens the conversation.
Okay.
So for item G as well, would you say that the Personnel, Public Safety and Protection Committee met, kind of thoroughly discussed it and has a recommendation?
It was discussed thoroughly, and it was a unanimous vote to approve that.
Well, is this the one? Oh, yes.
No, we're still talking about the badges.
Oh, okay, sorry. Separate on G.
Was your question, Jeff?
Yes in both.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
G as well.
G is the same.
He's asking about both.
We discussed the Insta-Alert sign. Matter of fact, there is a photo, actually, that got referred to for study, didn't it?
No.
Nope, that was the next item on the
Okay,
agenda.
This is what
It is-
Officer Newbert got the
A
grant.
grant.
Okay, this is a grant. for the
You're
Insta-
thinking
many
of the
signs.
pedestrian.
Okay, all right. We cover a lot of ground in the personnel.
That's why typically I don't like having to do this, but we want to
Yeah.
get this stuff ordered, so.
Yeah, it's hard when you have the meeting
I
right
know.
before this meeting, so.
know.
But I probably look like this normally anyway.
He's just confused.
We have before us a recommendation from the Personnel, Public Safety and Protection Committee to purchase a new Insta-Alert sign funded by grant money in the amount of $8,840. Could I please have a motion and a second?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Chief, would you like to explain that a little bit again?
Well, as was already stated, that we already have the money for it, purchased through the grant. This was something that was signed. We had it in a previous location, I think, and we borrowed it. And it was well received. Basically, the sign can be, we can put anything we want on it depending on what the location is and what we need it for. It's a movable sign, so I think it will benefit the community quite a bit.
Thanks, Chief. Are there any questions about the Insta-Alert sign? And again, that was a unanimous vote by the Personnel and Public Protection Committee to approve this. And the funds are, again, paid by grant, so it will involve no village taxpayer money. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item H, again, from the Personnel and Public Protection Committee meeting earlier, there was a
Nope, Jerry,
motion.
nope, this is on the board. This is strictly coming to the board.
Okay, all right. I spoke in error.
That's okay.
Mike, would you like to?
Sure. So, we are asking the board to consider approving establishing a new checking account at Oregon Community Bank for the police department seized money. Lisa needs to open up an account, and the bank, rightfully so, is asking us to do this through the board as an official motion.
Okay,
So move.
How is it handled now?
I'll second it for discussion.
Thank you.
Just wondering how the question of the seized money is
Yeah,
handled now.
so part of the issues with our evidence room that we had, that everyone is very well aware of, is that the money is kept in our evidence room. I'm proposing, as part of the accreditation aspect, is to move that money out of our evidence room and put it into an account so it's not accessible by anyone for that matter. So I take those opportunities away.
So, I want to abstain from the vote, and I don't want to ask you any questions relative to the bank, because I'm a banker, and that's a conflict of interest. But I'm curious relative to, the law enforcement end of things and the protection of evidence end of things, and so I want to ask you a question specific to that.
Okay.
To what extent is each bill and the serial number associated with that bill the evidence as opposed to the monetary value of that bill?
That's a good question. This is not evidence. This is seized funds. This is specific to if we have a search warrant or something like that, and it's like a fruit of a crime as far as drug sales or something like that, we're going to seize the money that was attributed to those drug sales. So those aren't aspects that we need to really be concerned about as physical evidence itself. We can use the monetary funds. We photograph all that stuff, and we have it, and then we just deposit it into a bank. So we don't have to worry about that aspect.
that answer your question, Joe?
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right.
Sure.
Thank you, Chief. Lisa, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Actually, it's probably a good internal control policy to do that.
Can I just be curious and ask whatever happens to the money?
It
seized
depends
money?
on what the case is. The money could be actually awarded to us by the courts. If that's the case, then 50% goes to a school fund and 50% goes to, well, in this case, it would probably be the general fund. So if it's not awarded to us, then it goes back to the owner, depending on what the case is. Yeah.
Good question. I learned something. Again. So, item I, Explore Oregon brochure.
We gotta vote on that, Jerry.
Okay. All those in favor of the establishing a new checking account?
Could we either call roll call so I can formally abstain or just note my abstain?
You can just say you're gonna abstain when
All
you
right.
do, yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
With, again, Jeff is abstaining.
Thank you.
Item I, let's discuss the Explore Oregon brochure.
That's just the FYI.
Okay.
We're publicizing that. And I think Judy put it, thank you, Judy. They're in your mailbox.
Does Judy want to come up and show it to everyone on TV?
Oh, that's,
Let's do that.
This is something that Randy Glitch actually came up with, and he brought it into me one day and said, hey, let's do this. And I said, okay. So the Historical Society was having their fall festival, so we quick put it together. And let me tell you, they know their stuff around Oregon. So we got it all together, and we do have pictures of the historic homes and of the businesses and things like that out there. And we also have the Oregon Rotary Bike Trail is also on there. So that's why we called it Explore Oregon, so that it'll bring people to town, and we hope to put these in the other communities that we have already talked to some of the chambers, so we could do that. And, get them, they're at the senior center, the library, the village, the chamber, and we're trying to get them at different places. So pick up one of these and take a walk through town. It's a beautiful fall time to do it.
That's awesome.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. And I tell you, I have when you're talking about having young students be on the board, this is what one of our young students did for us. She put it all together, and she is now at Ames, Iowa, as an illustrator for the, going to be an illustrator.
for college, yeah.
For college, yeah.
Very good.
So, what a nice thing. So, thank you also for considering students to be on the boards, because I just think it's such a nice thing to try to work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Judy, just a second. How about the pump house is going to have something on October 14th?
October 14th, and it's a fundraiser for the Tin Man, and it's 5 to 8:30, and it's $15 for one person and $25 for a couple. So, please come. He's going to have a silent auction, food and music. Anything else you need to know tonight?
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Moving on to reports of committees, we have none. Minutes not requiring action, we have none. Unfinished business, none. Under new business, we have to approve new operator licenses for Quick Trip number 731, Clint Kazabuki and Jay Jackson II.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries. Those licenses are approved. Under future agenda items, TIF number 3 must close no later than August 16th, 2032. TIF number 4 must close no later than September 15th, 2035. Boy, Lisa and Mike are going to be really old by then.
We'll be here.
Oregon Parks Neighborhood,
I don't think I
They're
will.
never retiring.
no. Addition, the final development agreement will be coming to the board.
Well, that was what Doug was asking at the last meeting, the red line version.
Yep.
So we're still working. When we have that done, we'll put it on the board.
It sounds
Pat,
great.
for the-
Could I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.